Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Today's topic is a Dungeon Master Guide for the Dragon of Icespire Peak. That is from the Dungeons & Dragons Essentials Kit. This is going to be a series of videos. The very first one I'm going to cover not the very first one, I'd say this is the second one, covering the quests, is the Dwarven Excavation quest. So a Dungeon Master Guide. So if you're a player playing through this particular adventure, this is the wrong video for you. Go and check out one of my other videos. I'm sure you'll find it useful and helpful in some way. This video is specifically for your Dungeon Master. That means there are spoilers. So if you don't want to wind up spoiling the video, the adventure for yourself, this video will definitely spoil everything because I'm going to reveal a lot of different information that you probably shouldn't know about. Okay, so the quest is on page 22 and 23 of the adventure book. There are three main objectives or quests. Although it looks like it's a single quest, I feel like there are definitely three major objectives. I'm going to go through each objective, breaking them down and discussing them in some detail and some of the issues that I saw with them. The first one is the most obvious, and that is you've got to warn the Dwarven prospectors conducting an archaeological dig in an ancient ruins or Dwarven ruins. They got to be warned that there is a dragon roaming the area and that they should clear out and seek shelter or protection in Phandalin or some other location. That's the basic premise. I'm going to say it right now. The basic quest is very easy. It's not hard to do. All they've got to do is show up, talk to the dwarves. They've done their job. Apparently, Harbin Wester is going to pay them 50 gold pieces for doing so. This seems really, really silly to me. I don't quite understand why it's that simple. I mean, it's first level, second level, so I can understand. So players can actually achieve this very, very easily without too much effort. All they've got to do is travel from one location to the next. There really isn't much that can take place as they're travelling. Very unlikely. But why is Harbin Wester giving them 50 GP or gold to warn a bunch of greedy dwarves? Where is he getting the bankroll for this? Is he just some sort of philanthropist, somebody who just likes to just give money away and help out? He's a banker. It doesn't make any sense. When I was looking at this, I was thinking, okay, is he connected to the Lord's Alliance? Is there somebody else bankrolling this? And honestly, I don't understand it at all. What I do think what would make more sense is that maybe Sildar Hallwinter is involved because he's part of the Lord's Alliance. He should still be in Phandalin, provided he survived the Lost Mine of Phandalva, or you actually include him in your adventure, which I think you could. He's actually got a bit of grit behind him, whereas Harbin Wester just stays behind his door and just pushes money underneath it. He doesn't really come out. He doesn't really do very much of anything. So I don't really understand the quest reward for this. So it makes more sense to me that you include somebody else rather than Harbin Wester as giving out that 50 GP and assigning this particular quest to the players. It makes more sense to me that the Miners' Exchange be involved and that Halia Thornton is bankrolling the relic and artifact dig for the dwarves because it costs money to dig up ground, and I would imagine she would have a lot more investment and interest in making sure the dwarves stay alive and are protected in some way, and that they are brought back to Phandalin alive. Now, that's my suggestion. You don't have to do it rather than Harbin Wester. What you might also want to do is maybe trim down the 50 GP to 25 gold pieces just for warning the dwarves. But if the players' characters manage to rescue or convince the dwarves to come with them back to Phandalin and they make it back alive, then give them the 50 gold pieces. There's no reason they need to actually engage in any kind of significant battle. There is a penciled as a battle with some orcs near the end of this location. I'm going to talk about that because I think that needs a little bit of adjustment as well, personally. Okay, so that's the first one. Next is quest number 2. This is actually given to the players' characters when they're on site at the Dwarven Excavation. It's given to them by Daisleen Greyshard and Norbis Iron Rune. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Those are their names. The dwarf prospectors offer a second quest. And this is given to individuals who are quite greedy. And that's my opinion. I think that this is really appealing to greed rather than to somebody who has got a good head on their shoulders. They are asked to destroy the temple monsters that are inside the temple, because the dwarves can't continue the excavation of the location because they've come across some sort of strange like creatures, that jelly creatures that they were afraid of, which they should certainly be afraid of. The reward for actually taking part in the dwarves quest is 2 sending stones, so that's a big carrot for any player, if you ask me. So it'd be hard for most players to turn that down. But the smart move is not to pursue that particular quest, because there are some significant issues with the temple location depending on what level the characters are. Because the dwarves don't really want to go. I could put it down to being just greedy or just stupid, but it's got to be one of those. So they're going to certainly be pushing for the players' characters to clear out the temple so that they can actually continue their dig, which means they're not likely to leave the location anytime soon, because who's ever heard of an archaeological dig taking a short amount of time? I've never heard of it, unless of course you use different sort of rationales, and it's a fantasy adventure, so you can do pretty much anything you want, right? The orca jellies are going to make a quick snack of any dwarf miners, which is why the dwarves have not been going after the orca jellies or the oozes. Now, you don't need to announce them as being ochre jellies or orca jellies. You can just say that we came across some sort of oozy-like creature, and it seemed to be dissolving insects and rats, and we were afraid if we got near it, it might attack us. Maybe it spat something at them, who knows? You decide how that's going to work. I have a big issue with presenting a jelly of this kind, because this ooze can down a first level character with a single blow. It really wouldn't take much for one of the oozes to take down a single level 1 character, even one who is built for frontline combat. Now, they might not die, but they'll certainly go down and be unconscious. Even a level 2 character, some of the softer ones, such as the wizard and bard, and of course your sorcerer as well, would also at level 2 go down by a single blow. And we're talking about an introductory adventure. So I feel like this particular quest is more suitable for characters who are level 2, level 3, preferably level 3 in my view. Or you're going to be really ruthless with new players, which I'm not really keen on doing so myself. And I don't have a problem with being ruthless with experienced players, but I feel like it's a bit rough for a new player, if you ask me. So the ochre jellies hunt by stealth, and they cling to walls. They can use spider climb to maneuver around. They surprise creatures. Usually they're going to go after small rodents and insects and things like that, because they don't really move very quickly. They can move through a small space, so a rat or a mice hole would be easy for them to actually suck themselves into and then eat whatever rats or mice are behind a stone wall or a wooden wall or something like that. When it comes to an adventuring party, in all likelihood they would not pursue armed adventurers who are moving through, particularly if there's a large number of them. They might pursue a single medium-sized creature, provided they could get the drop on them, pun intended, dropping down from, say, the ceiling or from the side of a wall just as they're walking through a door frame or through a doorway of some kind. But they're not really those sorts of creatures that would get involved in attacking anybody whatsoever in a large group. And the Monster Manual has spelled that out, so it shouldn't be difficult to figure that one out at all. So how do we approach the oozes in this adventure? The ooze in area E5 is the problem. I'm not so concerned about E7, because that particular ooze is moving around in the rubble, so that if it winds up biting off more than it could chew, it can escape. But also too, rubble would be a good place where you would find things like insects and rodents and other creatures living, spiders that it would feed off. So it makes a lot of sense that's where it would be. But for Area 5, the temple, it's supposed to be hanging off the ceiling, clinging to the ceiling. I would actually have it feeding in the pillar rubble. There's a pillar that's broken down. You could even put it feeding inside the secret compartment in one of the pillars. Maybe there's a hole big enough for it to have clambered through into the pillar itself from a different location. It's up to you. But I feel like the pillar rubble is the best place for it to be doing its thing. This is where you would normally find insects and other small creatures it would feed on, whereas you're not going to find a whole bunch of things for it to feed on the ceiling. Doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me. Okay, so when it comes to stupid traps, this one concerns me the most, and that's the exploding statue in E11, the Hall of Greed. It is supposed to be really this adventuring or exploring this Dwarven Excavation site or temple is like the worst idea under the sun, because there's really no big payoff. There's no significant payoff for the player's characters other than those 2 sending stones. Everything else is just dynamite as far as I'm concerned. So the amount of damage could easily kill a first level character. And it's not just a first level character. It's quite possible of instantly killing a second level character. Not downing them, but instantly killing them. It's doing on average, I think it's like 22 points of damage. Holy Toledo. You might want to reduce the amount of damage this particular trap does. Or I've heard of people saying, oh, you should find some way to lure them so they dig their way into E11, because you actually have to spend like 40 hours, a whole chunk of time. It makes no sense to go there whatsoever. Don't lure them in. If they decide they want to dig open this area and spend like 40 hours or split it up amongst themselves and take 10 hours, reducing the amount of time because they've got multiple people digging, then so be it. But I feel like this is one location that you don't really want them to go into. It's not such a big issue if they're level 3. If they were level 3, sweet. No problems, go with it. Things should be fine. Okay, now, when it comes to the last objective or quest as far as I'm concerned, the adventure says that basically once the player's characters have done everything they need to do at this location, some orcs show up. Some orcs show up and attack the party because they need a new home, because there's a white dragon that has driven them from their territory. This is really weak. I mean, I didn't like it. When I looked at it, I was thinking, good lord, alright, so what's the rationale here? There seems to be a failing in logic somewhere along the line. The orcs actually seem suicidal because the instructions for the orcs are, now obviously you could try to have a conversation between the orcs and the player's characters when they show up, but if nobody speaks orcish, and I mean you'd have to act, I mean orcs don't normally speak common. That's the whole point of having different languages, right? So if nobody speaks orcish, there's probably going to be a fight, or something else can happen. But it does stipulate that the orcs fight to the death. Why would they do that? They have tried to get away from this white dragon, so that would probably kill them. Now they seem like they're suicidal because although they want to avoid the white dragon and survive, they are totally willing to fight to the death with a bunch of heavily armored player characters. I think that's ridiculous. I would ignore that and, have your orcs don't have to engage in a battle. And in fact, if you do engage in a battle, I would have them run away. I would not have them fight to the death. It's stupid if you ask me. What I would suggest to you is that what's stopping these orcs? Why wouldn't the orcs just leave? If they come across heavily armored party and a bunch of dwarves, they could easily just move away from that location, do a bit of a stakeout and wait. And because it looks like these heavily armoured characters are about to leave anyway, because they're leaving as the orcs show up. They wait for the players' characters to leave. If they do decide to leave, they keep an eye on the location, the temple. Once the dwarves are on their own, there's only 2 dwarves, those orcs will be more than a match for the dwarves. They take out the dwarves, no problem, the temple is theirs. And of course, if the orca jellies are still in there, then they're probably going to wind up with a lot of trouble. But I don't see any reason why they would engage in a battle whatsoever. There's an opportunity for a conversation of some kind, which I think is great. That's awesome. absolutely, let's do something like that. But other than that, I don't see any point. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It frustrates me when I see things placed out. I mean, they had 2 pages to put together a whole lot of stuff. It's very tempting when you look at this location to put more monsters in the rooms because there's a lot of empty rooms. But I wouldn't do that. I would certainly put in little trinkets and so forth that the player characters can find as they're exploring. But I wouldn't add monsters because the monsters that are there are already pretty tough and pretty nasty if you ask me. Okay, so that's my big whine with regard to this particular quest. Now, if you found it useful and helpful, excellent. I have a couple of videos on the Dragon of Icespire Peak already, which you're welcome to go and check out. I do believe there is a playlist. It will get bigger. It's quite small at present. I think there's only going to be 2 videos or maybe 3 videos in there. I also did a review. If you're looking for stuff for just general Dungeon Master advice, I have hundreds of videos for that. A lot of videos for players as well. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing content like this, then I have a Patreon page. I have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon down in the description. I have a merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos. Make sure to share, like and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.